Rodney. I just sent you an email.
Hey, Joe.
Hi, I'm Susan Waterman. Thank you for coming.
How are you, Joe? Long time no see. Yeah, I'm still here.
Sir Darren Hooker. Nice to meet you, Joe.
Hi, Scott. I'm Susan Waterman. Hi, Susan. Nice to meet you.
Scott, Rifle Salas, Mayor Pro Tem.
Rifle, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Darren Hooker.
Scott McIntyre.
Nice to meet you. Hi, Tim Coffey.
Hi, Tim. Thanks for having us. Jerry Jackson. Jerry.
Rifle?
Mayor, yes,
Oh, are we starting? Good.
I was about to.
Well, I'll talk to you a little bit.
Okay.
It just reminded me of something, seeing Joe here.
Yes. I was checking with the mayor. Are you on board, Mayor?
I am on board. Good morning, everybody.
Morning. I'd like to call the meeting to order of this special meeting for the Village of Ruidoso. If you would take a moment with me to stand for a moment of silence and a pledge of allegiance and a salute to the state of New Mexico flag. Pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I salute the flag of the state of New Mexico, the Zia symbol of perfect friendship among united cultures. Thank you. Ron, will you do a roll call, please?
Mayor Pro Tem Salas,
Here?
Councillor Lutterman,
Here.
Councillor Eby, Councillor Hooker,
Here.
Councillor Coughlin,
Here.
Councillor Jackson,
Here.
Mayor Crawford.
I'm here.
Thank you. We have a quorum.
Thank you. I did talk to the mayor yesterday. He's at home on Zoom, but he did ask me to run the meeting. That's why I started all this and going on. Before we start on the agenda items, I'd like to introduce Cristela Armijo. She goes by Chris, our new projects manager.
Yay.
So welcome aboard, Chris. There's some of our directors here, and but I'm sure you're going to meet everybody. And just like me, I'll forget your name probably by the end of the meeting, but I'll try to. I had a good friend that his last name was Armijo, so I'll think of him. So thank you. Okay, I'm going to move around the items since I need to get Judy out of here and into her office. I just said that. We'll start with item number 2, discussion and possible action on adoption of Resolution 2022-31, a resolution amending the fiscal year 2022 budget, quarter ending June 30th, 2022, for certain funds and application to the Local Government Division, LGD, of the New Mexico Department of Finance and Administration, DFA, for approval thereof. Miss Judy.
Yes, Mayor Pro Tem, councilors, this is our fourth quarter budget adjustment for fiscal year 22. These will be all the budget adjustments from April 1st through June 30th. The total budget increase across all the funds totaled $2,992,101. And we will focus on each of the detail by fund. If I can get you to move towards the DFA form that shows schedule of budget adjustments, and it's in your packet.
Is that the budget recap?
Resolution
It's a
report.
resolution report.
Okay. Got it.
Okay.
Thank you.
And what this sheet does is it breaks it down by fund, by category, what the approved budget is, what we're gonna end at, and the difference, and what makes up all those adjustments. So we'll just go down in order, beginning with the general fund. The revenues, the transfers in, expenditures, and transfers out all increased for that department, or that fund. Revenues increased by 1.3 million, and it was for an increase, in order to increase GRT taxes to actual for the Canon purchase of 971,000. We got an emergency housing grant from the state at 47,904, and then our application for the grant for the McBride Fire at $350,000. Our transfers in increased because of increases from admin fees. If you recall, a lot of our enterprise funds will pay the general fund a fee for services, and as you know, we take a conservative approach to budget, so we budget our revenues low and our expenditures high. So when our actual revenue coming in exceeds our budget, therefore an increase to the budget is needed because of the additional revenue collected. So that's what you'll see in these increases. SGR increased by 100,736, lodger's tax by 24,879, joint utilities, which is water and sewer, 95,000, and the airport by 4,770, and solid waste by 52,900. The expenditures that increased in the general fund, in 21, we had set aside some funds for abatement for blighted properties. We didn't use that money, so I know they're starting some new projects, so I had to rebudget that 25,000. The emergency housing ended up being at 47,904, and the McBride Fire expenditures were budgeted at 350,000. We did reduce some of our expenditures for utilities by 8,350 to add to the funds needed for the affordable housing land purchase. And you'll see that purchase in the next section, which is this transfers out. The general fund had to transfer out funds to the intergovernmental grant fund for Cree Meadows closeout at 51,203. The purchase of the Cannon property of $1,300,510. And we also purchased the property at 1114 Meechin at $410,747, which is the going to affordable housing. So you will see a transfer out from the general fund, and then, of course, in the subsequent funds, you'll see the transfer in for the same amounts coming in.
Right.
Okay? Any questions on the general fund?
Where was the Cannon property? I don't remember that name.
That's Midtown.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't remember the addresses.
Mayor Pro Tem,
Yes.
I had one question, on the, abatement, we only did 25, is that gonna be sufficient?
Microphones.
Turn on your mic.
I can never see the red or green
Yeah.
unless it's chilly.
No,
Wait, can you restate your question so the mayor?
My question was, is that, you know, with, you know, the three code enforcement officers that we're gonna have on now, is 25 sufficient for the blighted properties?
this was just a rollover that we currently had. I know in 23, we're probably gonna have to revisit that, and I think we were setting aside or planning to set aside 100,000 or something similar to that each year, so that we kind of have a revolving fund of cash available whenever we do find
Right.
the process
Lighter
completed and you
properties.
can move forward.
Okay.
Sounds good.
I just brought that up because I know we're putting a lot more emphasis on that now with the police department and the
Right.
code
Yeah,
enforcement.
25 grand won't go far
No.
on those.
Is there any other questions for the general fund? Nope.
We're gonna move on to the SGRT, which is the supplemental gross receipts tax. We increased the budget 35,000 to Riverbend Engineering for the Two Rivers Park area. And there was a Horton change order for the drainage that decreased expenditures by $212,401. And of course, the transfer out for admin fees. On the SURF, we did receive a sweeper accident insurance reimbursement of $51,825. And we budgeted auction proceeds at $65,591. And then, of course, you'll see the corresponding expenditures out. The auction was $65,591, and the sweeper insurance reimbursement is $51,825. Along with that insurance reimbursement, we had some funds in our contingency within the SURF to add to that amount in order to purchase two sweepers that are on order and should be here, who knows when.
In 9 months, right?
9 months
I
or
think that's what
something.
Josh, we were just talking about that before the meeting.
But the reason you don't see that on this sheet is because it wasn't an increase. It was already in the budget in a contingency line item, and we just transferred out in order to purchase the sweepers. So
Okay,
it wasn't necessarily an increase. It was just a movement of the funds from one account number to a different account number,
okay.
okay? The next one is the lodger's tax. We increased taxes to purchase their share of the Cannon property at $600,000. And of course, you'll see the expenditure for the actual purchase. And then, of course, the increase in the admin fees to the general fund. On the gas tax, which is the street department, they did get an insurance reimbursement on one of their trucks in the amount of $5,779, and also there was an expenditure to increase the vehicle maintenance to get that vehicle fixed. On intergovernmental grants, you'll see the transfer incoming for the Cream Meadows project to close it out. On the GEO bonds, you'll see a transfer increase of $155,000 going to the Cdbg grant reimbursement. We've applied for a reimbursement, and there's a little bit of a timing issue. We're reconciling some additional documentation that our grant rep wanted. So as of last Friday, we finished getting her everything that she needed, so she should be releasing some of our monies back. When I get the reimbursements back, I'll pay this fund back, their money
Put it
that they
back
lended.
into,
Into
okay.
the GEO bonds. Of course, now you'll see the Cdbg Fund coming up. As you all know, for Town and Country, we were awarded $750,000. We were awarded an additional $60,000. So that is me recording the additional grant. You'll see the money coming in from the GEO bond at $155,000. And of course, we added $60,000 to the project through expenditures. On the General Capital Improvement Fund, you'll see the transfer in coming for the Cannon land purchase and through the transfer in. And then on the expenditures, you'll see the land purchase. And we also did a site plan at 603 Meacham for $55,722. And of course, we transferred out $111,445 for additional funds needed for some of the housing remodels for the Affordable Housing Fund. On RJU, we increased the revenues to actual at $250,000 for water. And of course, you'll see their increase in their admin fees coming out. On the airport, their fuel revenues increased by $60,000, which also increased their fuel purchases. And of course, you'll see the transfer out for admin fees. On the housing fund, you'll see the transfer from the general fund at $410 for the property purchase, and for the additional remodeling expenditures at $111,445. And then, of course, you'll see those coming out as expenditures. The next fund would be the solid waste fund. Their GRT increased over budget, so we increased it by $54,000. And we increased expenditures for fuel at $35,000 and yard waste dump fees at $54,012. And of course, they're increasing their admin fees at $52,900. So it wasn't the biggest budget adjustment that we usually have, but this was the final amounts for the end of the fiscal year. So.
Judy, generally your transfer in equals your transfer out, but in housing it doesn't. Your transfer in was at 522 and your expenses were 466. What's the
On
difference
which,
there?
on the which one?
On housing? 507?
The transfers in were 522, 192?
Yep. And your expenses were 466, 469.
Oh, that's because, they had some, budgets already, some funds already in the budget. So in order to get those, expenditures and balance out the project needs, I didn't need to pull that much cash from other funds. It was already in the budget.
Okay.
So you basically just made it whole.
Okay.
Any other questions?
I just have a comment. Should we, on these documents, put canning instead of cannon? It's canning,
Oh, okay,
CANNING.
okay.
That's why I didn't recognize Canon. Okay.
It's fine.
Okay.
I just thought maybe with the documents, we better do that.
Okay.
Good catch. 'Cause I didn't even think of that. I know it was Canning, but Cannon.
I couldn't figure out who Cannon was.
Any other further questions for Judy or the manager? I'll entertain the motion.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, move to adopt Resolution 2022-31, a resolution amending the fiscal year 2022 budget, quarter ending June 30th, 2022, for certain funds and application to the Local Government Division, LGD, of the New Mexico Department of Finance and Administration, DFA, for approval thereof.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Can we have a roll call, Ron?
Counselor Jackson,
Aye.
Counselor Letterman,
Aye.
Counselor Eby,
Aye.
Counselor Hooker,
Aye.
Counselor Coughlin,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Salas.
Aye.
Thank you.
Moving on to item 3, discussion and possible action on adoption of Resolution 2022-32, a resolution approving the final quarter fiscal report for fiscal year ending June 30th, 2022, an application to the Local Government Division, LGD, of the New Mexico Department of Finance and Administration, DFA, for the approval thereof.
Yes, this is Resolution 2022-32. This is a report that I do quarterly as part of my regular closeout. However, council by statute has to review this final report. Each year, what DFA is looking at is to make sure that each fund is not overdrawing their cash, meaning that the beginning cash plus the revenues and minus the expenditures doesn't exceed cash on hand and stuff. So what we'll do, we'll move to the Department of Finance and Administration, Local Government Division, actual recap. I believe it's called,
It's the fourth quarter DFA report.
report, yes.
Okay,
And we're gonna focus on, column number 8. That's our ending cash and investments by fund as of June 30th. And in column 9, you'll see that there's an amount there. That's for the amount of the statute, requirement of 1/12 of our budget. However, as you know, we actually reserve an additional 12. And so that's the only fund that has a reserve like that. So, what DFA is doing is just making sure that none of our numbers are negative. So as you can see, all of our funds report positive cash flows. And at the end of the fiscal year, the total cash that the village was holding was $69,441,900. So, and even if you look at the general fund, if we add in that extra 112, we still have about, let's see if I could do it in my head, 5.7 million on the general fund to start the new fiscal year with.
sounds good.
Well, Judy, doesn't that available cash of $6.9 million already take out the 1.2 reserve?
Yes, but our additional 1.2 that
The additional, got
the
it,
additional
okay.
that we hold.
Okay.
Do you need a,
Had a question for Judy on the quarter report right before the meeting of the state fund revenue.
Oh, the state grant. So that was the McBride fire that we just approved to the budget of the
Okay.
350, the emergency housing grant that we got at 47, and then the New Mexico Clean and Beautiful, and some state overtime grant reimbursements.
Okay. Any other questions for Judy?
Mayor Pro Tem, I had a question.
Yes.
Judy, where are we holding the recovery funds?
Recovery funds right now are in the general fund, and it's actually on the budget report within the federal grant line item of the general fund. We've received $977,000 in fiscal year '22, and we're being told by DFA that we should get the other half sometime between now and August.
Okay. Good.
We did expend some of the monies for our consultant on the IT RFP, Herman Baca, but the majority of the funds are still there. We're holding them in reserve.
Okay. I'll entertain the motion.
I'll make the motion to adopt Resolution 2022-32, a resolution approving the final quarter financial report for fiscal year ending June 30th, 2022, and application to the Local Government Division, LGD, of the New Mexico Department of Finance and Administration, DFA, for the approval thereof.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Counselor Hooker,
Aye.
Counselor Eby,
Aye.
Counselor Letterman,
aye.
Counselor Coughlin,
Aye.
Counselor Jackson,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Salas.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Judy.
Thank you, Judy.
Good job.
Okay, moving back to item number 1, discussion and possible action on recommendations and operational strategies by the governing body related to the comprehensive analysis and development of the Village of Ruidoso Solid Waste Department Master Plan and Rate Analysis Study. And who do we have here?
Mayor Pro Tem, my name is Scott McKittrick. I'm Vice President and Environmental Technical Sector Director for Souter Miller and Associates.
Thank you, Scott. And who's joining you? I know
Joe
this guy.
Lewandowski, operational consultant, subcontractor to Sauter Miller Associates.
Okay, so let's talk about this analysis plan.
So we got a bit of a late start due to some contracting issues, but I feel like we're up to speed now. We've had good interaction with your staff, and I will say that on first pass and even digging a little deeper, your solid waste department seems to be doing a good job. We've been impressed with how they're running their operation. We think they're doing a good job. As any operation, there's always tweaks, things that can be changed. In terms of the report, I think we're on schedule. The last draft submitted included information on, I think the last thing was capacity and capability. The next section we're working on has to do with staffing and asset management and a few issues like that. And our purpose here today really is to get input from the council. We've heard from staff, we've looked at things, but our purpose today is to hear what you as the elected officials for the community, what your concerns are, what your issues are, so we can make sure that everything is addressed when we get a final report.
Okay. Well, I'll start off because I've had quite a few residents asking, are we looking into doing, polycarts services? I said that will increase your rate very high, but I didn't know how much it would increase. Is that in the scope of work of looking at alternative collections?
Yeah, I think that is, and I will, Joe Lewandowski, who's with me here today as a subcontractor, he is really my heart and soul of this report. He's an expert in operations. And so a lot of today I may defer to Joe because he's really got great experience, and I'm doing my best and I'm keeping up with him as I can. So.
Okay.
Mayor Pro Tem, basically what he's saying is I'm the trashy guy in the room.
Joe's the trash man.
But, again, your situation and all that, I know extensively because I go all the way back to 1991 when we started the Solid Waste Authority, was the manager when he set all that up and ran this operation. And so I've seen what's going on. If it's okay, I'd do a quick briefing of what's in that to kind of give you a feel of what's going on with the report. Have they even seen any drafts or nothing at this time? Okay. Basically, we've gone through, we have the guidance that you provided us. We've gone through the background of what's been going on, current status of things, historical events, which are important to see how things are flowing versus how they used to be. And is it improving or is it declining? Of course, we went through a lot of numbers and did comparisons of numbers. Now, this is not a rate analysis. That's going to be a separate contract with someone to do the rate analysis of what those rates should be. We are, though, looking at the operational costs and all the numbers that relate to that rate analysis will consider when they get ready to do so. Of course, there's a section on demographics and growth, and then you've had basically controlled growth. You haven't had anything go crazy as far as outbreak and everything else that would actually affect the solid waste heavily. I see a lot of municipalities and others ask for this, that information on growth, how it would affect solid waste. It's not like your water and sewer and streets and everything else. They're impacted heavily because you got huge capital outlay expenses to extend water lines, extend roads, do all these things, and add them to your maintenance. The good part about solid waste is if you add new customers, you add new revenue. And that new revenue is equal to or greater than what it costs to actually provide that service. So I don't really get excited about growth numbers unless it's something that's going to take you to a whole other type of system or something of that nature. But we do have them in there for you. You're still operating the side loader, grappler, and transport system, the side loader dumpsters. I was glad to see that one of the great things I saw was that you did change over and spent the money and bought the quality dumpsters versus the old flimsy ones with the plastic lids that got knocked over all the time. That was a super plus on the side loader system. The grappler system, of course, we'll talk a little more about that in a second. Transport, and I'll hit on that because I really want to point out on that one. There's something a little later here, I'll tell you. Now, to answer your question real quick, I'll go ahead and hit in here on the polycars. We had looked at that as the Solid Waste Authority, and over time looked at it. The issue was the carts on wheels on your hills was a hard thing to do. That doesn't mean you can't take neighborhoods like some municipalities have done and say, okay, this neighborhood, and that would be where you have year-round residents is the predominant what's going on in that neighborhood. Wouldn't say I'll give you an example. Alamogordo does that. The majority of the town, 90% of the town, is dumpsters in the alley. But there are exceptions where one subdivision said we'll pay more if we can have the carts to the street, and they got rid of the alleys when they built the subdivisions and so on. They also had carts for people that can't get to the dumpsters, special pickups for handicap or other means or whatever, that type of thing. The problem here was that, you spend that much money on all those carts, millions of dollars, and then 700,000 never come out except for two times a year when they're up here visiting. So that was the problem. Couldn't offer that if there was an area in Ruidoso that made sense to try to do that, and the neighbors all wanted to do that. You'll find at the same time, I converted Carlsbad from dumpsters in the alley to carts on the street. Counselors were worried about there was going to be a lot of screaming and hollering, and there was only like 6 people out of the whole city about Carlsbad that got upset about going to the carts because they got the dumpsters out of the alleys. You don't have an alley situation. It's just, it does get done, but it needs to fit what's going on in your area. And all the times we had looked at it before, it just didn't make sense. We had also Downs it works, but they're actually, believe it or not, a lot flatter than you guys, and it's a little easier to handle the situation there. And they have a residency is more fixed than what you guys goes on over here. We also looked at the current agreements that you have.
Did that address your question?
It did, that did cover it, because as long as it's in the report, because that's how I could respond to our citizens. I didn't even think about terrain, you know, of course, they're talking about building each little platform at the road of each house so that it'll sit level, but I said, well, you could pay for that, go right ahead, but.
Well, I
But
know the
that's a
bears would
part.
appreciate it.
Oh, yeah.
We would have some really fat
Plastic parts, they could just
bears
roll it
around
off
here.
with them and take it with them.
And it's only a handful of people just, and you touch one of it, you know, the convenience of an elderly person having to go lift the metal lid and stuff like that, where if it's right by the house and then roll it out, but.
And you could
anyway.
consider, you know, they have an application they would file, and they could do that with someone like that, and if you wanted to have solid waste do that, they could actually have a special route that deals with that. I had people where we actually put the cart right underneath her window, where she could just open the window and drop it. I'm not saying you have to go that far. But you also have to be careful, because we've also had people that are elderly, couldn't do it, but then there was a 36-year-old son and his girlfriend and everybody else living
Right,
there.
right.
Could have done it, you know, so, you know, you gotta really balance what's real and what's happening.
Well, Ms.
Uh,
Park, oh,
the-
go ahead.
The thing about it is, you know, with our 900 plus rental homes, you know, we have a problem right now with our dumpsters filling up. You know, if we get rid of the dumpsters, where is that trash going to go? Because, I mean, we have just a very few in our neighborhood, and our dumpsters full after every weekend. If we only have poly carts, I foresee a lot of trash everywhere.
Jerry would have to hire more people just to go around and clean up after the bears.
I just, to me,
It's a
that
bear
just doesn't make
situation.
sense.
It's also with the seasonal people, they come up on Wednesday, they leave on Sunday, and their pickup day is on Tuesday. They're not here.
No,
And so the cart gets either put out and sits there till they come back next year, or the cart doesn't get put out, which means they end up hauling their garbage away anyway. There's a lot of those pieces that goes on
Right.
because of those situations.
I think it's important too to recognize the fact that in addition, as a segue to what Councilor Lutterman said, is that 2 out of 3 homes in Ruidoso, irrespective of whether they're short-term or not, are second homes.
Yeah.
So this goes again to something you said earlier about, are they brought out twice a year or not, in terms of the portable units?
Right. And I knew those numbers because back in the early 90s when we started the Solid Waste Authority, Ruidoso had the same number of residential, almost the same number of residential meters as Alamogordo. But you didn't have the population. But residential meters, it had almost as many residential meters, but 70% of them were seasonal homes or part-time homes come up during the summer. So we'll make sure that it's good in there, there's a reasoning for it. Not against it, but it just doesn't fit.
Well, I mean, it makes sense because like how Councilor Coughlin said, you know, staffing, more equipment, more maintenance. I mean, all that was going through my head as I talked to him, but I said, but I'll ask, we'll see what comes out of this, and that's the purpose on there.
And a lot of those will end up back in Texas anyway.
Most likely. But I did always, you know, back when I was Parks and Rec Director, we always tried to plan as if our community was always a full-time resident community. I mean, we did that with water, we do that, you know, with our programs and stuff. If there was a family in each of our homes here full-time, how can we address that? You know, of course, we're right, you know, only 60% or 40% are full-time residents and visitors, including the short-term rentals, which make that capacity. And that's where we have the problems of mainly the outlying areas. Because I see it in my neighborhood. I think it's people from Cedar Creek, they'll come up to the neighborhood and use the dumpsters there. Because they are. They're probably maybe a quarter filled from just us in the resident, but on the weekends, our outlining areas, those are filled up the most. I know on a family on Gavilan that every weekend, you know, I think one time Jerry put 2 dumpsters there just to alleviate, you know, everybody coming from the forest and those camping out at Fort Stanton and leaving their camp set up, they'll come in and just dump it off right there.
I find a fair amount of trash in the dumpsters at the Boys and Girls Club from people that live along Gavilan.
So,
And I was gonna point that out, what happens by removing the dumpsters, because right now, you may not wanna pay for it, but you are paying for it. You are
Yeah.
getting what we technically call illegal dumping. Anybody coming from outside of your jurisdiction, dumping
Right.
in your dumpster is illegal. Contractors dumping in your dumpster is illegal. But that negative is better than the negative if you didn't have the dumpster.
Of course.
Because what happens is, they move on to the boys' club, McDonald's, wherever there's a dumpster, your parks. They
Yeah.
will find a dumpster, and if all the residential dumpsters are gone, that gets, then you're just gonna still get that same number, that tonnage, it's just gonna come in a different direction. And so, you definitely have the best system, I will provide you that information, but I can't see that, there's any system out there that can do better than the Siler for what you're doing up here at this time. Again, if you have a subdivision or an area that, but then it's not worth the investment to have a truck that'll go just do 60 houses either, so it doesn't work either. Then, like I said, through these current agreements you have with the landfill, with Green Tree, Sierra Contracting, kind of looked at those to see what the status was on all that. Looked at your routing, your solid waste routing. You're basically still running 3 and 1 on Saturday, and it's been 3 routes since 1991. It's never increased. You have higher capacity trucks and all that kind of stuff, but again, even with the growth, population growth, and a little more activity going on, it has not added any more trucks to any more routes to what was going on in 1991. They had that. You still have that capacity to add even more, without having to highly invest into a lot. Recycling is all done with Green Tree at this time. The village provides most of the recycling dumpsters. There are some provided by Green Tree, and they're on a variety of different frequencies as far as the pickups of the accounts in the here. You don't pay Green Tree anything to do it. They simply keep the revenues from the sales, which is not huge dollars. I can promise you that. So.
Aren't we're providing funding to Green Tree for that, yeah.
I didn't found anything that you were paying anything to them.
It's like $25,000 a year or so.
Oh, the Green Tree, as for your membership in the Green Tree Solid
No,
Waste
no, this
Authority,
is-
that's not related to recycling?
No, this is recycling.
For recycling? I'll have to look at it.
yeah.
Okay, didn't see that one come up.
Jerry, is
I
that-
know there was a $25,000 discussion for membership in the authority, which gives you the ownership of the landfill.
Well, and then there's also the part where the tipping fees that are rebated back, we don't get our fair share of the tipping fees based on the tonnage that we're supplying. We get it split among all the members on the Green Tree side, so we're getting less there, which is another way of paying Green Tree even more money.
Well, one of the suggestions was, and that should be factored in too. I think you remember me talking about that back in the day.
And that's always been my complaint there, is that and tipping fees go up every year 2%, but then the excess revenues are not always coming back.
Yeah.
So
Basically, we're subsidizing the other
we're
communities.
subsidizing the other
is
communities.
What it comes down to being.
Mayor Pro Tem, if I
Yes,
may.
sir.
Jerry, did you have anything to add to that, or can you fill that in?
Come up
Come on
here,
up
Jared.
here, sit down,
The
and
mayor's on the line, so.
Jerry, why don't you sit here, Jerry?
there you go.
You could turn on this. And Mayor Pro Tem, not to mention, they're always full.
Yes,
Yes, absolutely.
There is a 97 cent, or 90 cent that people pay for the recycling on their bill. But we have not turned that in quite some time, because we pick up so many contaminated cans, we don't, turn that in.
as far as paying to Green Tree, so we keep that to offset the cost of emptying the recycling bins.
That is right.
But there was something came through the council, and I can't remember the exact dollar amount, but it was somewhere around $25,000 a year that comes through in an agreement that we have with them, and that started when Green Tree started picking up all the recycling bins for us, or was supposed to pick up the
Was
recycling
supposed to
bin.
be getting all that.
Let us look a little closer into it. We've lost 2 of the individuals, Jeff and Deborah Engel, that were involved with whatever was going on.
Mayor Pro Tem Salas and members of the council, we had an agreement here for additional yard waste disposal that we had to take over to Green Tree. That's some of the additional costs we had last year, but
But there's a recycling one too. There's a recycling agreement in addition to that yard waste.
yes, and that's the, Counselor Coughlin, the recycling agreement with where we were utilizing, as Jerry mentioned, the recycling fee on the bill. But I'll double check on that too.
Okay. Yeah, we'll visit on it. I have the recycling agreement, and it doesn't really have anything there. In fact, one of the things that have been recommended, this solid waste authority's been around since, 91. And then your relationship, in the 90s, went on your own again. The county went on their own. And we've been recommended that everybody sit down and revisit all these agreements to see if they really relate to what's happening today. So it might be a good time to look at how all this is tied together.
Exactly.
Because, and there's things that you might be able to do for each other that'll help save dollars at the same time, without actually going back into, but there may be some, we'll look into to see that, because again, what I had received was basically, they're emptying the dumpsters, they don't get paid for the emptying of the dumpsters, they just keep the sales. And if you'd like, I can do a quick analysis of dollars in, including the landfill refund, if you had got the refund directly, because that's another one of those issues that should have been brought up and discussed.
Right.
The relationship on that. Because the way it's being done is, the council, village council here is probably not happy with it, but it is the way the legal agreements are written. And so it's not that they're, the legal agreements, but maybe the legal agreements need to be revisited. And,
Right.
and I can figure out what, because I know what their costs are to provide that service, and then throw in all the dollars that are somehow from one source or another are being funneled to Green Tree to do the recycling. And I'd have to say it's still probably, and they're still in the negative, they're getting the sales. But they can't give me any sales numbers on what the tonnages are because they commingle. More than half the containers they pick up are not in the village, and they pick them up on the same days. So that all that material is commingled into the same containers.
They do a lot of
really trying to
commingling.
track it separately.
Yep.
That saves money by the truck doing all the routes at the same time versus one truck just for you, one for them, because then you pay the full cost of that route. Where the cost of that route is being spread out over all the members when that recycling truck goes out.
I will say I brought that subject up at a meeting one time about revisiting, and because we're subsidizing all the other groups, they all said, oh, no, we don't even want to talk about it.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a tough road.
Well, I think the numbers would be good for everybody to understand where they stand. I got a different, seeing the numbers from Green Tree and everything over the years, you are putting money in. I'm not sure if it's really that much of a subsidy to others. See, the county thought the same thing, but when all the numbers got factored in, so it's good to just put them together.
I'm talking about the rebate. The rebate should be based on tonnage, just like Otero County does with all its members, but Green Tree does it differently and just divides it by the number of members.
Right.
And since we put in 50+% of the tonnage, we should be getting 50+% of the rebate back, and we don't. We get like 1/7 or 1/8 of the rebate, when there's a rebate.
And that deals with an agreement that, the way the agreement the village
The way the
wrote.
agreement was written was
It was
horrible.
written by the village. I don't think whoever wrote the agreement really understand the relationship when they didn't talk to the trashy guy.
Yeah.
Because I don't think because it's set up as 1/12 is the magic number in your agreement, and that was a Village of Ruidoso's,
Right.
agreement written.
And the attorney that wrote it is now the attorney for one of the other entities.
Yeah.
So.
As the world turns.
Yeah.
But the point is it's a good thing to village, and they should look at it and see how all that relates. Rates, as I said, this just doesn't address rates. There's numbers, there's concerns and everything else, so it will help. So when doing the rate analysis, like what I do is factor in how all that relates and what those real costs are, including the hidden costs that a lot of people don't think about, and how it all relates together.
What would be a hidden cost?
A lot of times, your administrator, I don't know how much, I didn't study the budget again because we're not doing a rate analysis.
Right.
But in many cases, administrative costs, billing costs, other costs of that nature, public outreach costs, things of those kind of things. What we've done, like with the landfill, we have all our capital outlay at the landfill, which we've been doing Since I was manager of the Lincoln County Solid Waste Authority, we pay cash for everything down there. And when we buy $900,000 scraper, we pay cash. When we build a 1.3 million sale, because we set up the funds in the way that that money was being accrued at the right rate and all that. And it also allowed, not the, no fuel in the vial, but the refunds that you're talking about, the landfill has given back $2.4 million over these last 10 years. And that money, and this year, the smaller the group, and the relationship that has been misunderstood for quite some time, there's only two owners of the landfill: Green Tree Solid Waste Authority, Otero County Solid Waste Authority. In fact, when we set it up, Bob Stopko was the manager of Alamogordo, was the manager here, we intentionally left it one vote to make everybody get along. Because if you have a third one, then it gets political, who's that third one? And we've only had one occasion since 1993 when the landfill opened up that we actually had a tie, 1-1. Went back, worked it out, and then they called a special meeting, came back, fixed it, and went on our way. So even though you have 6 members up here, they have 4 members. That's not how it votes. It's Otero votes, you vote, and it's 1-1. That's it. Now Otero voted to do it that way because, you know, in their case, you know, Cloudcroft doesn't do their own garbage pickup. They hire a contractor. Alamogordo does the same thing. It's called contracted. Tularosa's back into doing it themselves. Otero County does it themselves. So they have a different relationship with how they do their budgeting. But it is something that needs to be addressed because those agreements are, some of them are conflicting with each other even. To straighten out what, we've gone through that many times, which one really has precedent over the others.
So, where it is working good for us.
Hit your button, Jerry.
Okay. We get a discount for our tipping fees, and it's a lot cheaper, Counselor Coughlin, too.
Well, yes, we get a discount because we're a member, but at the same time, you said, what was the rebates over the last 10
You have a
years?
mileage differential. There's 2 rates, primary rates. Now, there's more than 2 rates, but there's 2 groupings, member and non-member.
Right.
Mescalero, Holloman, White Sands, El Paso, they all pay at a higher rate because they're not a member. They're not one of the members when we formed this thing. The contributing member that actually stepped out there and built the thing and put their money up. But also at the same time, I was the Lincoln County Solid Waste Authority manager, and I live in Alamogordo, of course. And so what I did was, the landfill was supposed to be up here north of Thule, which would have been more convenient for you guys.
Right.
And so Alamogordo wanted to move it south of Alamogordo. But that was gonna add additional cost to us as Lincoln County Solid Waste Authority to transport that additional. So I calculated the numbers to what it would cost us to do that additional mileage, the rate differential. And since 1993, you've been getting that discount you're talking about. It's because you're going a further distance. And in fact, it was a fun night that night in Tularosa. We all got together. We said we wanted the rate differential. Alamogordo got a little heated and all that and everything else, but it all settled down. But I did go home. I had a porch going on my house. I did go home and check my building permit to make sure it was up to date. So. But we did get it. That's what that one is. See, that's why I mean, some people don't understand what some of these relations.
Sure.
It's because you're doing additional, and you'll get that forever. You'll never, you pay, in other words, you're paying per ton less than Alamogordo or anybody else, any other member.
Right. But how much did you say over the last 10 years was the rebates, $2.4 million?
2.4 million.
So what makes no sense to me, business-wise, is why rebate $2.4 million but have an automatic escalator of 2% every year in the tipping fees?
Yeah.
If you're having that much money left over to rebate back, skip over the 2%. Maintain your reserves that you need, but don't keep raising it up every year and then giving back a little bit to the peasants, is the way it sounds. And then, like I said, is we end up getting screwed on the deal because our 2%, we don't always get our whole 2% back because it's being split up differently within Green Tree.
Right. And there was 2 issues there. One is the split. That's something here locally with all the members up here on the hill, well, in the Lincoln County, get together, get the agreement the way it should be.
Right.
That fixes that, because Alamogordo cuts the check the way that the agreements say. The 2%, the reason I did that was, I did the rate analysis for, on that and everything. what happened was back when we did that, we're on the 8th year of that 2%. What we did is 8 years ago, got the boards to approve 2% annually automatically unless the board votes not to do it. In other words, the boards can't take it away. They can vote to say no 2% this year, but it's automatically in there. So that rate continues to grow with inflation and CPI and consumer price, and stuff like that. Now, why that's there? That year before asbestos closed up, the federal government basically stopped all projects, asbestos, because your money is to asbestos. We take in numbers on that, took in $324,000 in asbestos, and it cost us $46,000 to handle it. So we had a net profit of $280,000 because of asbestos. That's where the bucks are as far as that keeps the rates for you guys cheap. What happened was when the feds shut down and for about 4 months, and there was issues going on, we got zero asbestos. It took us down from that cash cow going on down to here. It's like, uh-oh, this is tight. And if asbestos goes away again, then what happens is if we leave the rate where it is today, 10 years from today, it's not going to be adequate because it won't be up where it has to be. So if we just gradually take it up, it will be where it needs to be in 10 years and not have to rush around and make it up. Now, it's easy to give it back, and we do calculations showing how it's happening and make sure it's fair in that manner. It's harder to get it out of your hands afterwards, or for you to have to come back, and if you had to wait and do a 20% rate increase to offset the landfill cost because you weren't gradually bringing them up. That's why we did it, because the asbestos could disappear any time. Now, the thing with asbestos, it will disappear because it's not like solid waste. It's not being generated anymore. As long as the feds are still cleaning out the buildings in Fort Bliss, El Paso Housing Authority, and all the other individuals doing that down there, it will, but we expect it to dry up anytime. But when it dries up, you're not going to see the landfill come saying, we need a 20% rate increase because we didn't raise it 2% over the years. So what I'm saying is you bring it up and keep it going with the cost of living today versus leaving it down here, and when the asbestos goes away, it's like, all of a sudden you got to do this. This is easier to absorb than this big jump. And again, both boards can vote to say no 2%, otherwise it's automatic, it goes in automatically.
Well, but we both know that the proxies are a joke, where one person's voting for 6 different entities at those meetings. So, you know things are never gonna get approved. That's just my opinion. When you have one person there, when they go around and do the roll call to establish a quorum, and one person's using 6 different voices and kind of laughing about it, they're not taking it serious. They've already made up their mind. It's not going to change.
If presented properly and looked at how it needs to be, again, I've been involved with the landfill for all the way back to when we built the place. For whatever reason, there's not as many people showing up because it's the quietest board that anybody has. It's been so cooperative. Too bad a lot of other parts of villages and municipalities and counties can't do the same thing. It's one of the most successful membership, you got, like I joke about, when we formed that thing, I was amazed that we could actually get it done. We had 8 municipalities, 2 counties, we had 10 managers, 88 politicians, and then everybody had their own attorneys, and then there was bond attorneys and everything else. I mean, there was 150 people involved that had to all kind of agree to get it there. And when they did, and it's still one of those, if you want to call relationship-wise successful, it still is. The cheapest landfill in New Mexico, one of the cheapest in the whole country. And you don't have those rates. Taos right now is at $49 a ton. You're at $16 a ton. And you will stay in that area, even if the asbestos goes away. That's why we've done what we've done, to build up the reserves and do all the things we've done. There's no scary impact that's going to hit you someday if this doesn't go the right direction. Working with it, it's been very successful. I'm not trying to defend them.
When you have people sitting on the board representing their municipality, it's unethical for me to give my vote to somebody from another municipality because they are not voting in the best interest of my municipality. And that's what's happening every single meeting, every time over there.
So,
It's-
but he's here to tell us this stuff, and we've got the historical data, but now he's gonna be able to come out at the end of this, and maybe we can go back and discuss all this,
Right.
Yeah.
right?
And with the agreement and going back
Yes.
into that,
Yeah.
and like, for me, I'm saying, let's get rid of the recycling, program, cause it's not working. And, or at least the
Plastic has
services
no
we're
value,
getting,
really.
cause, I mean, Jerry can attest that how many times that contaminated, dumpsters, and the reason why they get contaminated, because our dumpsters are full, or the visitors are coming, oh, shoot, they don't read the signs and throw it all in there.
The good running area also, not blaming seasonal people, but they, on the way out of town, they kind of take a shot at the dumpster as they're going. So,
Right, and that's
where a
where
lot
we're
of our
going.
cleanups are.
Okay, we'll move on from the landfill, because I know
Yeah.
Counselor Lutterman has a subject on convenience stations.
Oh, yeah.
So,
In fact, I'm gonna hit on that if we can get to
Okay.
there. Green waste is one of your bigger, your green waste bill, is about 3 times what your landfill bill is. It's gone up, in the mid 300s up into the mid 400s now, and you'll probably hit the same thing I didn't have the numbers as of June 30th. That one is a hit, but it's a necessity. There's no doubt about that. It has to be dealt with. The fires are an example of why. Because, I saw it here in Rio Dosa. I also worked for San Miguel and saw what happened up there. Your fires, even though they were bad, would have been considerably worse if they hadn't had some kind of program like this. Over by the school, you can even see it. It never made it to the canopy because you had it cleaned out underneath. So it burnt underneath, but it didn't make it to the canopy because there was no fuel down here to get it up to the canopy. So the programs are good and continue to do so. There's different options of looking at how to deal with that. The landfill, your landfill numbers and tonnages, 5 years ago, you're in the same place. That has not increased. You're still in the range there of almost what you're paying 5 years ago versus that landfill. You were at, well, as of May 24th, you're at about 148. Last year, 177. 165, 159, so it's been a gradual increase, but it's not anything that's been drastic. That is not being absorbed into your system. Waste characterization, another part of the thing was to look at the garbage, to actually take samplings and all that to see what kind of volumes are there as far as material, as far as trying to divert some of those materials. Rio Doso and the Green Tree Group together, you're the most, have the highest diversion rate in the state. You're beating everybody because the volume of yard waste, the recyclables, everything else, scrap metal, tire, everything that's being diverted. You're the highest in the state as far as those numbers. Capacity, that we do hit on that, I won't get into in depth, but capacity, you have room to add. The transfer station easily could take more, but just the minor operational changes and things like that. But the design is more than adequate to equal double or more. It's by simply adding trailers and trucks. New technologies, there's not a whole, that was something everybody looked at back in the 90s when all the regs changed. Our regs went from 4 pages to
Mayor
7
Pro
pages.
Tem,
yes,
Joe, I think you keep getting off track. I think the purpose of the meeting is for you to hear from the council.
Oh, okay.
So I think we probably need to go back to that. You're going off on your report.
Okay.
And I think the purpose of the meeting is to really listen to.
get
the
our
vision.
input, that's a good point,
Yes.
manager.
Sorry about that. Apologize.
Oh, no,
Well,
that's
it
what
was
I'm,
information,
you
I
got the
wasn't-
knowledge, we see that. But like I said, if she can bring something up and you write it down, and then when you guys come back, then we sit in here for the next 2 days and listen to all that stuff, so that would be it.
Question on convenience stations.
Yes, we have a lot of trouble with mattresses and furniture going out by our dumpsters. Jerry and his crew has done a wonderful job with their trucks to go every day and pick things up. But I think we need somewhere accessible that we can deliver there as the citizen, so that we don't have to do that all the time.
Right now, the way it's resident or commercial, they can haul to Sierra. You have an agreement, they can do Sierra's transfer station, Sierra contracting down the road.
But they won't do that.
I understand. When you build convenience stations, one is the location, that's the number one problem, is location. In fact, Scott asked me about that yesterday before he came up, when I was looking at the map, trying to refresh, because I used to drive the trucks too, so I know every little back road and everything else, and I'm trying to figure out where I'd even put one, that I wouldn't have, 80 people in here, because I don't want it in my neighborhood type situation, and property values and so on.
But do you have a suggestion on where one might be located? And I don't mean to put you on the spot.
No, I mean, I really don't have a suggestion. I was hoping that maybe somewhere like where, what is the station on Gavilan that we have?
The or the transfer station there, but the Humane Society old building is under consideration, but yet they own the building. So either we have to buy it from the Humane Society, and we were looking at that place as a possibility, as well as on the north end of town. But on that, when you start discussing that, not in my backyard, not in my neighborhood, I mean, it's all those different,
Right, and I would say, based on discussions with Joe and looking at the Gavilan Canyon Transfer Station, and the idea of putting a convenience center at the transfer station, I think that would be somewhat difficult, just because it's a fairly compact site.
right,
With and the ingress and egress has line of sight issues, and it's on a hill, and so wintertime it can be slick, and so I would, and my main concern with it is it's tight. There's not a lot of space there to put a convenience center. I'm not saying it can't be done, but that's my gut on
Right.
that one. But other locations, yeah, I mean, that's definitely something we can take a look at, and say in a perfect world, if nobody is gonna complain about having this in their backyard, where would you put it? And then, from there, winnow down to places that would be realistic to put it there.
What about something similar to like what Capitan does, is they bring out a roll-off dumpster on scheduled times, like once a month or something, I think it is, because I get a water bill from Capitan, and it's noticed ahead of time, this is the day to bring all your junk and drop it off. And we just put a roll-off at a certain location or a couple different locations on a scheduled time of the month, allow people with all that big stuff, cleaning out your garage, whatever, go dump it there instead of filling up our dumpster with stuff that's not supposed to go into the dumpster or leaving it next to the dumpster.
Yeah, because they don't fill it up with the dumpster. They just leave it out.
Oh, they
Yeah.
fill some of the stuff, they fill the dumpster, and then they put other stuff next to the dumpster. But that would be something that might be a possibility to talk about, is, put a roll-off maybe at the far end of the Horton, parking lot out against Service Road, and then maybe one over this way somewhere, so that people don't have to drive all over town. Because if I have to drive to Green Tree, or I have to drive to Sierra Contracting, it's going out on the street. I'm not gonna drive it that
yeah,
far.
that's too far. But we do that once a year in April, Keep Reno So Beautiful month.
Yes, they do.
T-Bone Rodney over at Schoolhouse Park, they'll put a roll-off for that month of beautification, but that's not a bad idea,
We've
it's
done
just
pickups
the
for
location.
tires, we've done the
Yeah.
Christmas trees, and we've done electronic waste. But we haven't, not that I know of, we haven't really publicized the fact of just regular household garbage, furniture, whatever it happens to be.
But that's the purpose of that one in April at the park, because, yeah, you can bring your couches, mattresses, everything there, but unfortunately, half of it gets filled up with construction material, or
Yeah.
contractors say, oh, a free spot, and they'll just come fill it halfway up.
We could address the pros and cons of the different ways to do those items. The other thing about Gavin is you don't want the intermingling of your trucks with the public.
Yeah, that's true.
And so everybody thinks they can back up a trailer. Trust me, most people can't back up a trailer. And then you got semi-truck. I've always been amazed all the way back to back when I was around the place, how we got those big semis out of that canyon without anybody getting hurt, because you come out to McDonald's or whatever, it's a tight fit for a semi-truck, and it's just been amazing on that alone. To add any more to Gavilan now would be, well, I'll address that.
But it does seem like there's potential for at the south end of Gavilan Canyon, near the McDonald's there, there's, I'm unsure if the village owns property there, but that seems like a potential area that you could put a convenience center. But, you know, we really want to get input from you.
Yep.
We'll put out some options
Yep.
and get more input.
That'll work. Any other questions from the counselors?
The only other thing that I hear, you know, we had at the last council meeting, we had Bill Hall and talk about the trash in his neighborhood and everything.
Oh, yeah.
And, you know, I see it a lot, and people leave the lids up, and bears get into it, or the ravens get into it, or whatever, about, I don't know how effective some type of spring-loaded trash lid would be, where when you lift it up, then it automatically closes itself back down.
You get yourself into other liabilities.
There could
Us
be
as private
liabilities there,
haulers, we stayed away from that because it's the first time it slams on somebody's hand.
Yeah.
You're paying out bills.
Yeah.
It's more of an education type situation to get people to, some of this you're never gonna solve.
No.
You're just gonna have to have first aid to cover it up, fix it afterwards. And I don't mean about the hand, I mean just some of these things are not fixable, just controllable.
Right.
The way we're handling solid waste pickup and collection, for the most part, I think is probably the most efficient, given our terrain and our situation with the animals and things like that.
Right.
It's not perfect. I don't think it ever will be perfect. I know at one point we had those big taller dumpsters, and then we were having problems with the vertically challenged or the elderly being able to lift it up, so we all went to the standard size dumpster. But you know, the way we're handling trash, you know, unless Jerry, you've got any other ideas, I can't think of any kind of improvements really to what we're doing. As far as the plan to pick up, we could use new equipment always, but I understand
That is true. Even if we did have a convenience center somewhere, it would have to have one of those ramp where they back into it. And like Joe was saying, people's gonna be backing off in there. If you ain't got somebody there to man it 24/7,
True.
there's gonna be problems. If they can't get it in there, they'll just be putting it all around it like they do the one in Tularosa.
Yeah.
They see the roll off, but they can't get up to it, so they just dump it all around it.
Yeah.
So Jerry, having said that, do you think it's better to just have our trucks go around the neighborhood and picking up things off of the ground?
To be honest with you, Counselor, I don't think we're ever gonna fix it.
I don't either.
It's just in the last few months even gotten worse. My poor secretary is just tearing out her hair with all the calls and everything that's coming in. And it won't quit. It don't stop. And if anything, we'll probably need to hire more bear mess and years ago, we used to run 5. We only run 4 now. And get more trucks. Just put more out there.
Yep. I do like the roll-off idea, like once a month.
You're not gonna get couches up into it, but
Not unless it's got a ramp.
unless it's got a ramp.
So, Councilman Coughlin, when you say once a month, do you mean once a month for a day or once a month for a week? What's your thought?
I think in Capitan, it's like for a day or two. I think it might even be like a Saturday, the second Saturday, isn't, or how do you live out there?
It's every Saturday.
Every Saturday?
Certainly, no.
Oh, okay, I thought it was like a Saturday a month or something like that. And it's by the women's club or something, yeah.
And would you man it? You know, have a couple of folks
Yeah, I
there
do.
who could.
You probably need somebody there to be able to oversee it and make sure we're not getting all the construction stuff.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because that seems more functional.
Yeah.
And if you put it out there, you know you're gonna get the.
Oh, yeah.
Construction
Yeah.
debris, so.
Yeah.
Even if we did it for half a day every Saturday and had somebody there, I mean, you
'Cause
know, every Saturday from 8 to 12, you can take your stuff and take it there.
If we do a convenience center, it's not gonna be convenient for some people.
Right.
And you're gonna get some people taking it there, but I think you're still gonna get all the stuff. So
By the dumpster.
yeah, you're still
or
gonna
in
get
the
that, because
dumpster.
that's been the way it's been done for so long. And
You're right.
we just carry it out and we set it down next to the dumpster and they come and pick it up. And the stuff you see next to the dumpsters is amazing. You almost need a bigger stake bed truck rather than the little.
Well, the grapple trucks have to get off their route and come and help them.
Oh, really?
Uh-huh.
Wow.
All that illegal, the wood and everything.
Yeah.
It'd take that guy all day to load it.
Yeah.
I mean, the grapple trucks are forever coming and helping load them.
Yeah.
Then they just load theirself and just take it to the transfer station theirself.
I've just seen them, rolling a hot tub onto that lift gate and then pushing it up into the back of their truck. I mean, it's amazing what people haul out there.
Oh, yeah.
It's awful.
Any other questions for Scott or Joe or Jerry? Thank you, Jerry. You are
Yeah,
doing a
thanks,
good
Jerry.
job out there.
Yes, sir, thank you.
So when do we expect to see your report?
I have to admit, I am unsure what the schedule is, and I would defer to Russ Doss.
So it's still a ways out.
It's a ways out.
Okay,
but it's-
that's good enough.
The drafts, for the sections we've completed, we've had drafts that have gone to staff for input, and so we're polishing those up.
Right.
And we are on schedule, and I apologize that I don't have that schedule.
Not a problem, not a problem. I just didn't know if we're getting close to it or if it's still a ways out.
I got a question there. As far as the convenience center, I'm assuming you're gonna probably be asking administration or staff about available village property that might be utilized as a convenience center. But also at Green Tree, they have, when you come and you dispose of your waste, that they have a drop-off, and that's where your dumpsters are, so you're actually throwing it downhill instead of trying to get it
Lift it
uphill.
up.
And so that would definitely be, I think, a safer option there. But also, it sounds like you've been involved in analysis for quite a while. So I'm assuming that you've worked on setting up convenience stations in other communities, municipalities. So I wondered, when you bring the report, could you put in there, say, the percentage or the drop-off in illegal dumping, people putting, so, because it'd be interesting to know how much those are actually utilized. And because, of course, you want to have cost, be cost positive. So if we could have that, and then, as they say, if we set up a dumpster once a month, people want to get rid of their stuff now. They're not going to hang on to it for a month or 3 weeks. So they definitely want to get rid of it. So any other options like setting up once a week or convenience center, and it definitely be a positive as far as the solid waste and helping to alleviate the strain on the solid waste department. Definitely be a positive.
Right, because hit on that just real quickly. At the beginning, when we talked about community, I said one thing: location.
Yeah.
Location's important for safety. Locations for convenience, so they go use it. If it's too far out, they won't use it. It's adequate space, as you saw when we designed Green Tree, because I was the consultant that designed Green Tree. The trucks, when they come in, the garbage trucks immediately split off, and the residents are no longer intermingled with what goes on with the rest of the operation. And that's why Gavin's on it. But location, if a location is fine, I can tell you the cost of a convenience station is minimal. Why is it minimal? Because you're already getting all the garbage and sending it to the landfill and paying that bill anyway. It's just you're spending labor and the cost to go pick it up off the ground where you could have them put it in the container for you. So affecting your budget would have virtually no effect to have one. A few dollars to build it and put it in the setup. But after operating, it's not an issue. It'd be minimal. But if you don't have the right locations, if you can't find a location, then there's no convenience station.
So then the first step would be to go over and review the available properties that the village owns and see if any one of those is suitable for a convenience station.
And you were right, when they use it, it's back to what we were saying about polycarts. They come up on Wednesday, leave on Sunday, and then next Saturday is when the roll-off comes out, they missed it anyway. So, I mean, I'd say not do it. I've done that before. We had one little village up north with, 70 people in it. We did the same thing. We just took the container out the fourth Saturday, set it down for 4 hours, and then took it and then come back to the next fourth Saturday. And everybody knew it, and they did the right thing. But you don't, well, we'll hit on that. I won't go into that.
Good.
I did look up Capitan as a reference. So they do take items at 4:30 every Wednesday. Appliances, mattresses, and large furniture items are $6 each. 1 cubic yard of waste is $22 to drop off. And then the yard waste is the one I was thinking about. It's the second Saturday of every month. So they do have it, and they're gonna charge. To be honest with you, we get a lot of stuff comes into the village from outside the village.
Oh, yeah.
Because all the contractors, I know, like Alto, people go out there and clean up their yards and everything, and then they come running into town and drop it off at the side of the road, because then the contractor doesn't have to pay to dispose of it. Which is something that's never gonna, unless we had a place where they have to come in. And even when I was doing handyman work, I would take stuff over to Green Tree to drop off, and they'd ask where it's coming from. And if it came from within the village, I'd have to pay. If it came from other entities that they're doing their trash collection for, there was no charge for it.
It's built into the fee.
It's built into the fee already.
Any other questions? I'll entertain a motion. Do we need a motion for this? We don't need, it was just discussion so they could get our input of doing the analysis, so.
I will say is, if you walk away and think of something, email me, please. Ron has my emails. I would welcome input right up to the end.
Mayor Pro Temp, if I may, the way that I look at this discussion, what I'm hearing from the council is we need to look at other options of making sure that we're cleaning up a lot of the material that's provided, and provide a convenient way for people to dump of their mattresses and
Right.
couches and all the stuff that we're seeing that is being put next to the dumpsters, and do it in a more efficient way.
Right.
So, what we'll do with Ron and I, and of course Jerry, is have some further discussions and potential properties. There's a couple ideas that I have, and we can discuss those with Joe and Scott, and then we'll come back with some recommendations.
So, one other thing I noticed, that Jerry might be able to answer this too, is that, I don't think on the dumpsters there's any wordage or verbiage that states to simply keep lids closed.
There is.
Is there on all of them?
They got the stickers that they put out, little triangle stickers that, or not triangle, at any rate, that are on there. And I think we did a thing some years back, bought a whole bunch of those new stickers.
Yes, sir. Counselor, we have bought a lot of stickers for the illegal dumping, please keep this closed and all that. Robin just ordered some more for the illegal, and they don't care.
Well, I wonder if you just took a stencil and spray painted. keep lids
Manny
closed,
used to do that, our container man used to do that before he'd send the cans out. And it was good until it got graffitied. But we'll start doing it again, Counselor. I mean,
Well, so sometimes just a simple sign like that. It's like,
Please.
Oh, I need to close a lid.
please keep lids closed. Robin did order some more, so.
Mayor Pro Temp, can I
Yes,
ask
sir.
a couple of questions?
Yes.
Did I hear correctly that, what percentage of the landfill does Ruidoso or Lincoln County provide to the landfill? You said there's 7 members?
There's 2 owners, there's 10 members. Otero has 4, you have 6. But that's not how the relationship is. As far as your percentage of what revenues, you're like 22%.
Percentage of tonnage?
Yeah, you're about, Lincoln County as a whole, as a group, Green Tree Solid Waste and Ruidoso and all, Alto, everything coming out of it, Lincoln County, is in the 20%
20%?
of the tonnage that actually goes in landfill. I'll be happy to add a couple of numbers in there so you can see that relationship. And again, working that out is going back and rediscussing these agreements to get them, because again, they're doing it exactly the way the legal agreement says so. I'm not saying it's a good agreement, I'm just saying,
But Joe, we're at about 50% of the Green Tree side.
Right.
yeah.
Yeah. So, and that's really what makes the difference, manager, is not the total landfill, it's more on the Green Tree side.
Okay, and I'm just trying to understand that and, you know, for various reasons.
It's
and-
confusing
Yeah.
as all heck.
And, Joe, do you represent, the landfill still, or are you just working as a private consultant?
I'm a consultant for the landfill.
You still are
I
working?
work for both of the solid waste authorities together on the landfill.
Okay,
And I can provide you the numbers, because it's very detailed every year it comes out. Like this year, there was no dividend or refund or anything because there was issues going on out there. New stuff having to be done. But I can provide you some historical numbers in the landfill section so you can see that relationship. It doesn't hurt to see even your relationship altogether. As Councilor Hoffman said, sometimes it's a little,
Mayor Pro Tem, you know, Counselor, I did say that I would, you know, look at those agreements. I haven't had time to look at it myself, but,
Okay.
you know, I think there's some concerns that I'm hearing being expressed on the contract side.
Yes.
And, you know, we're always in a position to negotiate.
Right.
So, you know, I know that Joe represents, the landfill now as well. So, you know, I'd prefer that we hold those type of discussions and. You know,
That's
have
good.
those
We
separately.
need to move forward, and we've been talking about this for 10 years, at least I could remember.
I'm going to clarify so there's not feel like there's a conflict. I work with the landfill in the city of Alamogordo, but I work for the authorities. I work for you through the authorities. My contract is actually with the authorities, not the city of Alamogordo, because of the relationship, because I have to be able to give the answer to Ruidoso, that's the right answer, versus Alamogordo, and not just give an Alamogordo answer. So
Right.
that's how the relationship is. That's where there's not been a conflict. Same thing, I work, not much anymore right now. Green Tree's pretty quiet, but I do have a contract with Green Tree. But at the same time, when I represent Green Tree, I'm representing the village of Rio. That's why I just mentioned, I know the agreements need working on.
Right.
I represent the village of Ruidoso as much as I do Carrizozo.
Right. Is that all?
I was gonna ask, real quick, just for informational purposes, is you stated that Taos was $49 a ton. So that makes me feel good about that, us being 16. So what's the average rate in the state?
In the mid-30s,
Mid-30s?
yes. There's no one even near us of what we have.
That's good.
Can I ask you a question, Joe?
Sure.
Is there a reason why they haven't opened up that other sale? Or do you know?
That's what we're working on right now, to go ahead and move forward with the next cell, enclosure on the other cells, and also do some things with the road. So we're putting a whole package together, which means they'll be calling in a special meeting of Green Tree and Otero to approve the package that's coming to them. Because, yeah. the-
Microphone.
Well, we'll go on that.
Jerry, you need your mic on.
I'll get with you on that afterwards. We can talk about what.
And Mayor, what Jerry's question was opening up another cell at the landfill, and they'll work on that. Well, if the council has no other firmer comments or questions, we will move into closed session, and I'll entertain a motion for that.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, move that we move into closed session for discussion of limited personnel matters, citing 1015-1H2 NMSA 1978. Further discussion subject to the attorney-client privilege pertains to threatened and/or pending litigation in which the Village of Ruidoso is or may become a participant, citing 1015-1H7 NMSA 1978. And finally, discussion of the purchase, acquisition, and/or disposal of real property and/or water rights by the Village of Ruidoso, citing 1015-1H8 NMSA 1978. Any action taken as a result of the closed session will be brought back into open session.
Second.
We have a motion and a second, and before we vote, I want to thank you, Scott, Joe, for giving us this report. A lot more
Absolutely.
information, and now you kind of got our feel of what we're thinking, or at least what we're hearing from the community. And that's where,
Glad to be here. We're glad you invited us. We appreciate the ability to
But thank you guys very much. Appreciate you. Roll call.
Counselor Jackson?
Aye.
Counselor Hooker?
Aye.
Counselor Coughlin?
Aye.
Counselor Letterman?
Aye.
Counselor Eby?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Salas?
Aye.
Thank you.
We will go into closed session. Yes, Rodney, Joe, and Austin will attend as well, and Mayor will call you.
Sounds good. Thank you.